Hello, everybody. This is Jeremy Warner with ETHOSystems. Um, Thank you, everyone, for joining. I've been with ETHOSystems since 2005, formerly the majority of those years, Cornerstone Solutions. I see about 40 people, 40 attendees to this point, but it's 9 o'clock, so I'll get going. But um, for all the attendees, everyone is on, I'm not sure if this was sent in the email or not, are on listen only mode. There's not a way for me to switch that off. So if you will or can or want, in the chat in GoToMeeting, I'm going to keep my eye out in the chat, and I'll certainly try to keep up with them. If there's certain things that go into more detail or maybe not part of this year-end class, like this meeting is recorded, which will be sent to everyone. So I'll certainly go back to the chat and make sure that there's no unanswered questions in the chat, or at least addressed. But like I said, hopefully I can address them and answer them on this call. So feel free to use the chat, and I'll try to keep up on it. Like I said, I've been with ETHOSystems since 2005. I've been teaching this year-end class for Sage 300. At least, I don't know, close to 6 or 7 years, past 7 years. As you can see, we'll be talking about closing the year. I'll give you some tips and tricks, a couple stories, never name client names, but mention a couple scenarios that have happened that may have happened to you, or by bringing them up won't happen to you, hence the reason for joining the class, right? As well as that, get into W-2 and 1099 processing. Even though it does say W-2 here first, I typically go into the 1099 processing first, and then leave the W-2 for the last, we'll call it, 45 minutes or so, towards the end, because not all clients have in-house payroll, but majority, if not all, right, obviously have AP. And if they're not processing 1099s through Sage, or maybe on this call because they want to start doing so, and when I say start doing so, Atrix. So I also try to gear the class to, kind of in-depth year-end, as well as, for new users. There's going to be, I see a lot of familiar names on this attendee list, and a lot that I'm unfamiliar with. So I'm sure there's quite a bit of new users and long-time users. So it's always good, even a long-time user, to get a refresher for year-end. With that being said, let's jump over here. I'm going to first start off. All of these documents, I mean, what we're looking at right here that I just jumped to is a Sage knowledge base. If there's certain users that aren't familiar with the knowledge base, at least if you've heard of it, I would highly recommend setting up a customer login for the knowledge base, because as you can see here, even though this, excuse me, I have a little stuffy here the last couple days. Even though this was created on 2013, as you see here, I'll give you they started doing this last few years as far as giving the last modified date. So as you can see here, you can start seeing which knowledge base articles are current, things of that nature. So first thing we're going to start to talk about is the closing of the respective years. The reason why I have this knowledge base up, like I said, I'll get this information when I say I will. I'll talk with Jen, our marketing manager, who did a great job setting up this year-end class, sending out these documents, material, so you guys have them handy rather than trying to go, search for them. But here, where do I want to go? Down below, kind of some highlighted points that I want to talk about. The big question we always get is, do we need to install the year-end version before printing W-2s? Yes, you must install the year-end version before you process or print government forms. So when I read this, that's twofold, right? Year-end version, meaning the Sage year-end version, which most of you should well know. If not, I'll definitely point this out. If you open up your Sage desktop and go to Help, About Desktop, you can see the version of Sage right in here. Even though on this one, the most recent one, I just did a big migration and upgrade last night for a client. The most recent version is 22.2, and then it's update 1 for 22. And there is on the knowledge base, you'll see version 22.2 and update 1. With that being said, I did come across, bear with me here, let me open up my note here. I think I put it just put these screenshots together here. Not that one. Bear with me. Did I put it in there? This guy right here. I did find this in a product document. It says the changes in the 23 tax updates are compatible with Sage 300 version 20.5 or later. So us at ETHOSystems and in consultants, we highly recommend always getting on the latest version, which in this case is 22.2. But according to this document that I found from Sage, the tax updates are compatible with 20.5 or later. If you are on 20.5, just based on this alone, says the tax updates are compatible. But for me as a consultant, again, still recommend jumping up to 22.2. There's many reasons for that, but just I did want to share that because that's one of the big questions that all of us consultants get, from year to year. As this says, right, even though we get our, version of Sage up to date, right, we still need to do our tax update within payroll. Many clients, maybe not many, but more than a few across a number of years when they upgrade the software version, right? Well, the tax update does not come across with that year-end version here. So with that being said, if I jump over here to payroll, the download taxes for payroll is here. We have update taxes and download taxes. I always go into download taxes because within download taxes, we can click on update taxes. What I'm about to show you is not required, but I always like to go into the tax rates, not all of them, right? But here, federal withholding, and as you can see here, right, the effective date, right? When's the last time these taxes have been updated? If I go to social, right, there's 2012, but here, let me go to right here, right? See those effective dates? So I always like to take a before and after look. So here now, if we do download taxes, at this point, we want to click update taxes. Now, with this being said, today's, obviously December 29th, people may be processing their last payroll for 2022, whether that's today or tomorrow. We do not want to download these taxes and definitely don't want to update these taxes until we've fully processed 22 of your 2022 payroll and have posted that payroll through. It may sound like a no-brainer, but I had a client years ago. The example is when Medicare and Social Security switched from, or Medicare changed from, I think it was Social Security 6.2 to 4.2 from one year to the next. I think it was back in 2012, 13-ish. They posted all of their payroll, and then 3 weeks later, when we started to do the W-2s, I think it was the third week of January, there was one employee that turned up red in the Atrix grid, and it said that their Social Security was not within $1 of the limit. Well, after doing some digging and asking questions, found out that once they processed their prior year payroll and posted it through, they downloaded their taxes, as you would imagine, right, to get into the new year. Well, at that time, the employee came back and said, "Hey, you shorted me 4 hours, or you didn't get my overtime, or whatever it was," and that company went to the prior year and added those 4 hours to the prior year's check, or an additional check. Well, at that time when they did that, they already had the taxes downloaded for the following year. So that's why the Social Security went from, like I said, 4.2 to 6.2, or vice versa. We ultimately, to fix that, we actually had to go into enter checks and enter, I think it was $8, negative $8, in order for them to write the guy back an $8 check. And then when we went into Atrix, they were within that dollar threshold. So a little story, but a real life story, right? Just to be conscious that, hey, we don't want to download and update these taxes until everything's posted through. So with that being said, I'll just click start. It says, do we want to update the taxes? Yes. Taxes were updated successfully. And let's go tax update of the PDF set here. So now if we go over here to set up taxes, tax rates, let's go look at some of these that changed here. Back, I know federal withholding has changed since 2012, but we got a new demo server and new sample data. So this is the first time we made that jump from, like I said, 2012 to 23. But it's not required to go in here and look, but I always like to do that just to make sure that, hey, it grabbed the most recent changes. In this document that I have over here, important, the stage tax update does not include state unemployment rate and limit changes. I always, at least one that I talk to, at least once a year, if not a couple, the client will do that download tax update and think, oh, I downloaded taxes, I'm good to go. Well, I'm in Illinois here. I know you guys are all across the country, but so I'm going to use Illinois. But if I come over here to Illinois, and as you see here, the sample data has all Oregon employees, right? Obviously where Sage is from, but here you want to make sure you put in your limit, right? And your limit and your percent for the upcoming year. And you'll want to do that for each, respective state that you work in, because I know clients do work in more than just one state. So I'm going to jump back over here to the GoToMeeting. I'm going to try to look here to see if there's anything in chat. I don't see anything in chat yet, but we'll keep moving here. Let me move this and close this. Bear with me. In what order should I close my applications at year end? So we'll jump back over to our demo server and start talking about that. But as you can see, there is no, well, I should say they're closed independently of each other, and we can close in any order. But typically, right, we want to close general ledger at the end, because if you close general ledger and jump into in this case 2023, and then you're still making entries to 2022, Sage is going to look at Sage 300 is going to look at those as prior year adjustments. So that's why we want to close GL at the end. It's not required, right? Sage 300 is not going to throw up a message at you and say, hey, you didn't do this in order. But certainly we want to do the general ledger at the end, so that, hey, at that time, then when we're into January and we get our prior year adjustments from the accountant or yourself, right, then we truly treat those entries to the prior year as prior year adjustments. Now, if anyone on this call has, it's 12/29. I wouldn't think anyone has gone into 23, but very well if someone did, right? Or, if they do it prematurely, right? Point is, all you have to do is open up that period, make that entry to the prior year, and then what we want to do is reclose the year. So I'm going to jump to GL, and then I will jump back, even though we did say, hey, we want to do GL last. For our example here, I'm gonna open up general ledger. And now this sample data that I'm in, Timberline construction sample, right, is back here in May of 22. So we did get it a little updated. It used to be back in 2012 or 2015, I should say. But if I click OK here, all we have to do for this scenario, right? This is in May, right? Open to the prior year. You're unchecking this box, clicking accept. You can make your prior year adjustments, right? For in this case, 21. Make your prior year adjustments. Finish. Now after that, what's very important, in this sample, right, of going back to 21, or when we go into 23 here, and you make a prior year adjustment to December, we have to go back in and close fiscal year. So if your current period is January of 23, after you make those prior year adjustments, I've had a client years ago, their trial balance was off, I think it was 50 grand. It was 30 grand or 50 grand, if I'm remembering correctly. They said, why is this not balancing? Well, come to find out, they made a prior year adjustment and they never went back in to close the fiscal year. So as you can see here, if I close fiscal year, it's going to ask you have you backed up your master file? It's definitely recommended, more than recommended, to back up your master file before closing the year. Like I said, if you prematurely do close it, because if you call Sage or another consultant and say, how do I undo that close year? They're going to say, well, you have to restore from backup. There is no undo. The undo is restoring from backup. And then they'll say, well, I didn't take a backup. Well, you told us you did, right? By clicking yes there. So you can get past it. I wouldn't recommend fibbing, if you will, right? But it does let you get past it there. So here, if I click OK, notice prefix not at year end, right? This sample data is in May of 22, so it's not like it's going to close June, July, August, right? All of 22 on you. It's going to recognize, hey, you're not at year end. Prior year adjustments will be closed. So if we click close, randomly there's a $30 transaction that someone made in the sample data. One of the consultants, may have been me. So if I click accept and start, now that'll flow through to your retained earnings. So just remember to, if you do close the year, go back into close fiscal year, and notice if I do this again, yes, go to this company, prefix not at year end, and now this time, as you see, no entries made to income or expense accounts because we already closed out that $30. All right, I'm gonna jump back over here to the GoToMeeting. Don't see anything in the chat, so that may be a good thing or bad thing, right? We'll see. We'll say it's a good thing for now, but let's go back over here. So that's general ledger as far as closing the year. Before closing the year, that knowledge base says it, and we don't need a knowledge base to know this, but I'm going to point this out. We always want, to start from the top down. When I say top down, all the sub ledgers, AP, AR, billings, right? Everything including payroll, job cost, and as far as a process or a procedure, want to make sure, hey, we've posted everything through these sub ledgers, right? And even if you've posted reversals, invoices, what have you, once you funnel those unposted entries down to posted entries down to GL, we absolutely want to make sure that there's a number of inquiries that you can run. But here, if you go into entries by batch, which I'm sure everyone on this call most likely has run, if you go to new, right? So here we want to make sure that we don't have any new unposted. I wish Sage would have called the word new unposted, right? But new unposted, right? So we want to make sure that nothing is sitting out here before closing the year, because excuse me, if you have reversals that were made, in December going into 23, if you guys may well know, but if you don't, when you enter an invoice in AP, if you have your settings set to automatic, that's going to post automatically to the current file. If you don't, if you make, but even with that setting turned on, if you make a reversal to a invoice in AP, it will send over to GL and it'll sit out here in the new file. So some clients will think, oh, I made the change, that went down to GL, and we're good to go. Well, we want to make sure we post that before closing the year, because point is, if we let that sitting out here in the new file, then close the year, right? Point is, then we're getting into that same deal that, hey, in order to post it, we have to come back here. I'm going to close this, but we would open this up. Then we would post that AP entry, right, through, and then it's going to recognize it as a prior year adjustment, when really you made that adjustment in December. You just forgot to post in GL before closing the year. So hopefully that helps there. Let's go back over here to AP. We'll use this as a segue into AP and get into 1099 processing here. So it's always good to come over here, company settings, AP settings, and know what year ending date you are in for the year ending date and the 1099. I've had a client in particular, right, say, oh, I closed the year. Well, then you come back here and look, and the 1099 year is, back 3-4, years, right? They're independent of each other here, right? So with that being said, there's tasks, close year in AP, and then there's tasks 1099 year. So we have both of these guys here. And as we just saw, those two tasks close the respective date here. I've even seen a client, and I'm not saying these stories to pick on anyone. I'm just saying them just so it doesn't happen to you, right? Or we try to prevent it, where they've left the audit setup activity turned on. Excuse me. And literally updated this here. Oops. Didn't take my keystroke. We absolutely do not want to do what I just did there, right? I was showing you what we don't want to do, but someone has done that before. And the reason why we don't want to do that is because if you do that, we come over here to vendors, down to that, and I'll turn that audit setup activity off. See how these fields are open? Well, let me go turn that off real quick to show you good practice. If you ever have to turn it on, because there are reasons why you may need to turn that on, but point is, we want that off. That was just under tools options. If I come over here back to a vendor, 1099, see, these are grayed out so no one can type over these numbers, right? We want these generated from transactions. But point is, we want to make sure we do that task close year, and in this case, 1099 year, so that the buckets, the totals for these, I call them buckets, or someone called them buckets years ago, so I've been kind of calling them buckets, or the master file totals, that this year moves to last year, right? Or if you're still in 22, which this database is, if we were to cut a check in 23 with a January 23 date, it does trap that next year, total here. So it's very important that right now, 12/29, that, and I just had a client email the other day saying, hey, our 1099 year, right, is in 2021, right, in 2021. So if they didn't close the 2021 year and get at least into 2022, it wouldn't store on the 1099 record, because there is no, I know I'm kind of harping on this, but this is real important because I've came across this many times. There is no 2 years from now, right? So in 2021, there is no 2 years from now. Now, if, and this is just making a point, but hopefully, obviously, just based on this call, everyone will check their AP settings, right? Their AP year, and get their year at least into 22 before cutting checks into 23. But anyone on this call, I don't want to think anyone's cut a 23 check, but if you have, for whatever reason, right? I'm not saying it's wrong if you did, but I don't know of any to this point, right? But if your AP or 1099 year was in 2021 and you were to cut a check or did cut a check in 2023, what we would want to make sure we do is, number one, go close the 1099 and get to current, right? Get to 2023. And then here's a trick that I learned a few years in to working, is this guy: recalculate 1099 totals. What this does is it goes through all of the check transactions, and then updates the respective buckets or totals over here. So hopefully that, I keep telling stories, but one client said, he literally said, I don't trust 1099 totals. I've never have out of Sage. And this was, going back 8 years ago. And that was the first time being on site, talking with the guy. And I said, well, why? He goes, well, simply the numbers aren't right. Well, sure enough, this was an example where the year ending date was current and the 1099 year was a few years back. So I explained to him, I said, I can't prove this out other than the fact that, hey, you're telling me the numbers are wrong, right? I'll absolutely point out where I wish Sage did something better, right? But as far as the totals and the transactions, right? As long as your years are current, it'll be good. So point is, what we did is we fast forwarded to 1099s, got to current year, came over here, we recalculated 1099 totals, and all you have to do here is just click start. And we can say recalc 1099 totals. You will want to make sure everyone are out of the system, right? While doing this is the demo server, so that's why I just jumped in without asking anyone. It'll recalculate and replace the totals based on payment records in the APM file. So if I click yes, processing completed, see journal for summary. In that journal, if you have automatic journals turned on, this one we have it set to the year. AP, December, and then I always click the date modified. That not go through. Why didn't that journal print? Sorry about that. Let me try that again. Don't think I have to include all. Oh, because I named it. Sorry about that. I'm sure if I had you guys off unmute, if it allowed me to, I'm sure someone would have been yelling at me for that. All right, so here recalc 1099 totals. So it just says, hey, number of, it goes through the prefixes, right? Number of vendors processed. So just keep that in your back pocket if that, ever need to, or if you've always been wondering, hey, my 1099s were a little off. My 1099 year may have been a year, or, was never up to date, but then, hey, you came in and you've been keeping it up to date. You can run that recalculate and then, make sure that those totals are accurate. So let me go look to see if there's anything in chat. Otherwise, I'll quit harping on that scenario there. But it is an important one, especially for closing the years. Scroll down here, and again, I'll send these over. So I don't want to make this class something that I'm just reading you Sage knowledge base articles for something you can read yourself. But point is, give you, like I said, tips and tricks or questions. But it does say yes, you can print 1099s regardless if you close the year in general ledger, just like it said up top. Hey, those are independent of each other, right? For the years, Sage is not going to yell at you and say, hey, wait, why'd you close this one first? Like I mentioned earlier. Here you can print 1099s before or after you close the 1099 year, and we'll use that as a segue here to open up Atrix. When I say Atrix, if I am in AP, if I come in government e-filing and reporting, it doesn't say Atrix, right? It goes right in here to form 1099. So I at least want to point this out, which I am going to go through the Atrix windows here. But before we do, I'm going to show you the Atrix website to make sure that, if you guys have enrolled, it's not required to enroll. With that being said, you can print 1099s to blank paper without enrolling, but when it starts talking about federal filing your federal returns, we absolutely need an Atrix login. Hopefully, you guys have heard of Atrix. If not, hey, that's why you're on this meeting, to learn about it, right? So here I'm just gonna show you, if I go to AATRIX.com. So here you can read up on Atrix, but years ago when Atrix first came around, I want to say 10 years or so ago, like I said, I've been doing this since 05, so maybe it's been more, maybe a dozen years. There was a client that said, no, I don't, I want to print it myself. I don't want to e-file, right? I don't, I always, I want that paper, or I want to hand it off. You can certainly still get the paper, right? You can still certainly stuff the envelopes. I'm not judging anyone that does that, because I know people just want to have that good feeling of here's your W-2, but then there's also people want the good feeling of, let me get this done as quickly as possible. Let Atrix send it out, right? To each their own on that. With that being said, here, if I come up to Atrix, right, it does have a lot of information up here from what they do. When we go into Atrix, which we will here shortly, and process 1099s, you'll more than not, every time you go in there, see that it's going to give you an updated form. It's going to download, and we'll get to that here shortly. But here, let's go here, where was it at? Oops, sorry, I clicked too far. Sorry about that. Here it is, here, atrix.com /e-file. But here, this is where you want to set up and enroll with Atrix. Because if you go through Atrix over here within Sage, right? Like I said, which we'll bring up here. If you go through there, at the very end, it's going to say, hey, what's your username and password if you want to, file these. And then at that point, if you don't have it, there is an enroll now. But my point is, I'm recommending before jumping into Atrix, go set up and enroll or locate your file. Now, if a prior controller at your company had it and you can't locate it, there is a process within here to contact Atrix, and they go through a secure way of getting, making sure you're the new controller and changing that contact. But here I'll just click enroll. But this hasn't changed, literally this screen, for 12 years, or however long Atrix has been around. That's my best guess or memory here, a dozen years or so. But here you're setting up this is pretty straightforward, right? Set up username, password, verify. As far as the accounting package, I wish they had a drop-down list. They don't. I haven't done this since last year, but I think if you do this guy, oh, here it is. Yep. If you type Sage CRE, I had it right. It'll find Sage 300 construction and real estate. So that's the one you want, and you can just type Sage CRE as kind of a shorthand to get to your software vendor. And then here, as you can see, contact, email, your EIN number. With clients that have multiple entities, right? We want to get all of our EINs set up. And again, that's a little process in and of itself. So I'll close that out. And one more thing before we go into 1099. Obviously, we talked about the year. We have standard reports in. Where to go right here? Standard reports. We have miscellaneous 1099 preparation. If you don't have fiscal entities, meaning if you don't have prefixes in your general ledger, you can certainly just go to the vendor level. But if you do have prefixes, right, we absolutely want to make sure we switch this to by fiscal entity. 1099, right, current year. So obviously here, yeah, you would want current year, but well, you'd have to make sure, hey, what is my current year according to Sage? We already saw that it was 22, right? So in this case, we would be current year. But if you did close your 1099 year, right, and got into 2023, right, and process your 1099s next week, 2 weeks from now, then you can certainly just do last year, right, to bring your 22 in respect to where your current 1099 year is. The minimum reporting amount, again, this year it's $600. And show me all the vendors, that receives 1099, that are marked receives 1099. So that drop down is just looking over here. So it's going to return all the ones that at least have $600, right, in the last year. Now I did put last year just for our example, but this year let's do the 2022 because this one we haven't closed the year yet, right? But here this guy would be picked up because the checkbox is checked, and this year is over 600. It's over by 4,020 there, right? Now I always do point this out. As vendors have been added throughout the year, let's say A1 Electric Company was added, halfway through the year. Someone may have set that vendor up quickly because, hey, it was a new vendor. We needed to, cut them a check and get things going. but then forgot to check this box. So I always do kind of recommend, hey, show me all, right? And I know you guys may have many vendors, but at least show me all, because then taking a peek at this, you may look at this and say, Pacific Telephone, wait, we paid them $13.63. They should absolutely receive a 1099, but it's set to no, because if we went into Atrix right now, right, Pacific, as you may well imagine, Pacific Telephone would not show up on there because we didn't check that box. So point is, I like to run this, have clients. I don't have my own company where I need to produce 1099s, but for clients, I always recommend, hey, just switch it to all, right, with the 600, make sure you have the current, the right year, and then do your due diligence to look through here and make sure that, hey, your AP person didn't forget to, check that box when they set up the vendor, because that definitely happens. I've seen it happen. It's definitely an honest mistake, right? Trying to get that vendor set up. So, and then at that point, right, we don't have a tax ID number. Now, there are clients that have a great process in place that, hey, when we set up a new vendor, right, we're setting them up, we're putting our tax ID, we're determining that 1099, information right off the bat, right, before allowing work for them, from them. But point is, things happen. So, but then when you're all set and ready, you can switch that back to 1099, and then it will show you, what Atrix is going to produce here. Don't see anything in chat yet. Thing is, if you guys do start throwing a bunch in there, I may change my story and say slow down, right? But right now I don't see any questions at this point, which is totally fine. So let's click close, cancel. We won't save that unchecked. All right, so let's get over here. So hopefully that was all good information, kind of preparing for 1099s. If I think of anything else, or if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. If I do form 1099 here, notice it came right up to this screen. More than, if you haven't ran it recently, I took these screenshots because I have seen that update take quite a while. So if I open up this Word document, oh, not that one, but I'll show you this year-end resources here. I took these screenshots because I wanted to make sure that those Atrix updates went through for this call, and I didn't want to sit here, especially with you guys on mute, watching an automatic update scroll through for a few minutes. I don't have any background music. This might drive stupid humor, but I don't have any background music for that to go through. But it did run this earlier, and it did take about 3 minutes or so. I mean, I'm on our server. If you guys are doing it from a workstation, it is workstation specific or computer specific, because it downloads the forms to that respective workstation or server. You don't need users out of Sage. I have had that question. Hey, do I need to get everyone out of Sage in order to do these Atrix updates? No, you don't. But this is the first window that pops up, even though we didn't just see that, right? But I mean, literally, you could come in here 5 minutes later. I could come in here later this afternoon, and if I click Form 1099, I very well could get this message again, because Atrix, Sage isn't providing these forms. Atrix, is, and it's staying in. If you look on Atrix's website, I didn't see it today, but I know I've seen it throughout the years. They say they're 100%. I think they say liable, or 100% not confident. I forget I think it's liable. That they will absolutely always, always, always have the most up-to-date government form changes. So that's good. So that leads into why would you like to update now? We always, always, always want to say yes. We don't want to say no. It may be an obvious point, but still going to make it. So once you click yes, then you click automatic update, right? Automatically downloads over the internet. And then here, this is the thing that just what I saw on our server today. Actually, I did it this morning just to make sure this was all set. But as you can see, Alaska, Alabama, right, listed a bunch of states. I can't scroll down because it's a screenshot. But point is, many, many, many states, and I know we haven't done the Etrix update for a while. So that, again, I didn't want it to hang for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes on our call. But I did have a client years ago say, why the heck is it downloading forms in, I forget what state she mentioned. We don't work in those states. And at the time, to be honest, I was like, yeah, good question. I'm not sure why they would, do that. And like I said, that was kind of early on. But then after I talked with a couple people, it makes 100% sense why they, even though you don't work in those states, why they're downloading those forms. Because if Etrix and Sage try to look in your data and try to look and say, oh, wait, let me look through the employee records. Let me look through the work states. Let me find out where you're working. And then, okay, I'm only going to pick up those forms. Now you're, 100% liable about, goes out the window or the guarantee, right? But I absolutely did get that question and I absolutely did respond. I'm not sure, good question, but then I did talk with them again and said, I got to change my story. I 100% agree why they would download all forms even though you don't need to use them. Not sure if anyone else has kind of thought that, but hopefully that was worthwhile pointing out. All right, so then here, as you can see, updating, and then it does say update complete. And then once you click close, from this, you need to come back in here. It doesn't just bring up this window. All right, so in this sample data, right, we have it set to by fiscal entity. So we'd want to switch this to fiscal entity, just like we, ran our preparation report. If you click the drop-down list, here's all of your list of GL prefixes that have your, based on your fiscal entity level over in general ledger. Depending on how you depending on how you have your general ledger set up, this one just has prefix A, which is company. But if you did have a prefix A, some clients will have a prefix A, B, and C. So it all depends on where you have your fiscal entity level, right? Where we get that federal ID number. So we want to make sure that you have your federal ID number populated there, so that when we come over here to Atrix, this federal ID number pre-fills. Now, you certainly, if it didn't pre-fill, you certainly could type it in, but I wouldn't recommend that. Number one, for extra work. Number two, you may mistype it, right? Every time you go in there. So point is, over here in general ledger, fiscal settings, federal ID, get that populated and set, especially if you have 20, 30 property management company, right? What have you. Make sure that those are all set so that when you go process 1099s moving forward from year to year, right, we're not manually typing that in every time. But here, the different forms. Reporting year 22. And, if we went into 23 and then 23, all you have to do, this would show 23. You would just need to come back down here and switch it to 22. So you can do it for the, the current year and the prior year. You can't do it for the, following year, even though Sage does, trap those, next year dates. All right, so here, do the minimum reporting requirements of 600. or not a foreign entity. Let's click next. Now here, notice we only have 2. Well, because I put prefix 10. If I switch it to 21, right, there's 6. So it is, as a, probably obviously already realized, depending on the prefix you select, will return the respective, vendor information. So let's go here, let's click next. So all of these are checked. Could you uncheck this, right, so they don't show up? Yes, but I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend, hey, go get that vendor correct by unchecking the vendor receives Form 1099, because you can do a quick and easy uncheck here, but then next year someone else comes in or you come in and you forget that we don't want this one checked, right? So point is, I always recommend going to the originating data point, but Atrix does allow you to do that. So here we'll generate. While that's generating, let me go look here, see if there's anything in. And you know what? Actually, I've been in chat. Sorry, I do see questions here. Can everyone hear me? Can someone? I did see Lily. You said, well, that was at 9:01. Have you started? I don't hear anything. So sorry about that. I do see some questions here. I was looking in chat. There's a question section and a chat, but I don't think I'm too far behind on the questions here. Can someone type in chat and just make sure you can hear me? I mean, that was at 9:01. I would have to think with 50 attendees still on, everyone can. I'm not on mute, so I think I'm good there. So Georgia Williams asked, how do you get the latest update version of Sage? I have 20.5. So let me go through that, and then we'll jump back onto the 1099. So so Georgia, I always connect through the Sage Partner Portal. You guys will have a customers.sage North America. If you don't have a login within there is a spot to enroll to log in. But once you do that, you won't, when you go into your customer portal, you won't have like an account management, but you will have the knowledge base. So here, if I move this over here, if I go to the knowledge base, up here you click My Downloads, and then we want to see Sage 300, which I don't think you guys will even see Sage 100, Sage CRM, because I'm in the partner portal, but point is we want to go to the Sage 300, and if I scroll down here, or actually scroll down for me, right here, these download links. So here the latest product is 22.2, and then with 22.2 there is an update, update 1 for 22.2. If any of you guys have my assistant, just last week or maybe a week and a half ago now, I've worked with Dennis Earnshaw, the developer, quite a bit throughout the years. He did just release and got Sage to publish the 22 of my assistant. Really, really slick. A lot of neat new features. One being that you can save spreadsheets out to network drives, where in the past you could save PDFs from report designer reports and crystal reports, but you couldn't save spreadsheets out to out to network drives. So now in this version 22, amongst many other enhancements, such as cleaning up the conditions and make it more user friendly, that's a big hot feature in my book. But it's back to the Sage 300. You have the Sage 300 22.2 and the update 1. So we'll want to do that on the server, and then all the respective workstations. So hopefully that answered your question, Georgia. I'm going to scroll down. What reports, Dorothy asked, what reports do you recommend running before closing the year in payroll? As soon as we finish up AP, I'll answer that one, Dorothy. So good question. Someone said Marguerite. Oh, Marguerite. Hello, Marguerite. What if you don't use the 1099 function in Sage and use a different software for payroll? Does it matter if you have a different date for the 1099 field when closing the year? Can the 1099 function be removed entirely? No, it can't be removed. As far as that, doesn't matter if you have a different date for the 1099 field when closing the year. I think I didn't see this question until now, but hopefully when I was talking about the recalculate 1099s, hopefully that answered it for you. If not, I can certainly you can certainly follow up with another question. But as far as, yeah, just go into AP settings, look at where your 1099 year is. If it's behind, right? Like we talked about earlier, fast forward it, if you will, to current, and then run that recalculate, and then literally it'll take all those transactions and sum them up and put them in the proper buckets. Heather, hello Heather. Is there any harm in recalculating just because? Good question. No, no, because it truly does go through all those transactions. And as far as your just because, I'll kind of piggyback off that. I mean, I'm not saying this is the case for you, Heather, but anyone for that matter. Like if you just started, I mean, obviously it's December 29th, but if you started in December of 21, right, a year ago today, right? Well, you don't necessarily know for certain when they last closed that 1099. Were they a little late, right? Like I gave you for that one example, was one check or maybe that first check run, was it, did it sneak into the next, 2 years later and then they caught up? So that just because, I would do it just because that fact alone, right? You may not be 100% sure. And then I think I'm seeing Marguerite's question again. Jennifer, oh, now I'm getting to the I can hear you. Thank you very much. And Lily, thank you. I see you're good now. Perfect. All right, and then what are the main benefits of 22.2 versus 25? Are they substantial? Very, very good question, Dorothy. Early on, Sage did say that 22 just had updated sample data. So is that substantial? No, right? At least, I mean, I'm confident saying that. I could think I'm confident saying that for everyone here. However, if you notice this, when you start getting into estimating clients, right, that have 22.1, then it's very, it's absolutely, substantial. And Dorothy, you may be asking strictly from an accounting piece, right, which I'll, speak to that. But also, if you have My Assistant, like I said, with My Assistant 22 works with 22 of Sage, that would be substantial in my book to go to 22.2, of Sage, especially from the My Assistant and estimating standpoint. If you just have accounting and not estimating in My Assistant, I'll show you here. Show the release highlights. It does talk about updates and performance stability. I'm not doubting it one bit, but I can't sit here and tell you that I've seen it firsthand yet. Like I said, I just did another upgrade migration last night, and after this year-end meeting, I have to jump on with them again and help them out. But they knew I was going dark here for a couple hours. So, but point is, this SMTP support. Even though I have quite a bit of IT background and knowledge and troubleshooting, I haven't seen where this, comes into play. I mean, as far as the security, if you talk with your IT and pointed that out to them, they may say, yeah, that's absolutely substantial. And then just as far as these enhancements, nothing really jaw-dropping, if you will. Not to take anything away from anything they did with the update. But yeah, these are the release highlights. Hopefully that answered that. I'm going to go back to AP here, and I'll keep up with the questions. Can't believe I was looking at chat and didn't see the questions, so sorry about that. All right, so back to the 1099s, and I'll keep my eye out for more questions. Here, the setup wizard, here you can do a test run of your first 25 recipients. I say if you're going to do a test run, I've never recommended just doing first 25. If you're going to do a test run, you might as well do them from all, because as soon as that 26th recipient comes up, or like I said, that example of the payroll person that was not within the dollar limit, right? It's nice that they did that, right? Kind of a little quicker, but hey, make a test that you're comparing apples to apples for when you go live here. But here, let's do no thanks. And now the test drive does, and I'm not saying don't do test drive. I'm just saying if you do the test drive, do all. At least that's what I would do. Point is here, if you can print them to paper, it does print a watermark saying that they're the draft, so it won't print the official copies. But here, let's do no thanks. Let's start processing. Brings in the tax ID number that we had. This certainly should be right because we should have checked it on that first screen. And then here, use a single 1099 data file for this EIN. On the payroll side of things, we'll talk about this screen a little bit more in depth, but point is, I haven't come across a client that has multiple data folders for their AP. Some clients I've heard and do just because I generate electronic payments rather than switching those ACH bank information every time, right? If they have multiple, different bank accounts, may have multiple 1099 data files, but what that's referring to, and I don't know if it does let me open up this open company, the data files is talking about those data files. But payroll, absolutely, definitely seen many clients have separate payroll data folders just purely based on from a security aspect. They may break out their field in the main database, but then break out their office or salary employees in a separate database purely from a security standpoint. They don't want their, the payroll clerk to see the office salaries. There are clients, right, that have it set up that way. Maybe a payroll administrator can see that. So that, I guess my point is, I did kind of start to get in the W-2 world, but for 1099, I haven't seen where you have multiple 1099 files. If you guys do and have any questions on that, absolutely let me know though. Here, this company name, as you see, it pulls from the prefix name that we had. This address information would pre-fill if, back again, like we showed earlier about the federal ID number, this time we did general construction. In the sample data, we don't have address information here, right? Just like we talked about the federal ID, But if you populate these addresses, and I've seen people on their initial setup quickly run through and set up, and I've done that myself just to get the companies or entities in the system so that you can start testing things out and then never come back and put that address information in. So just a small little point there that, hey, from year to year, rather than type in, 123 Street, go change it in your setup information. And here, we'll just do this. Click next. Oops, sure enough. There. So it does. And good thing about Atrix, like I said about that, I know I brought it up a couple times about that red. When it turned up red for that guy that was not within the dollar, Atrix will alert you. Just say, hey, what's required, right? Which I know we're not accustomed to that in Sage, but Atrix is very interactive in that sense, which is another big. Oh, here you go. Wish I could say I did that on purpose just to show you that, but I did not. Those are the required fields there. I'm filing this for my company employer. Click next. And then here for the state and local tax items, we'll see this on the the W-2 side as well. Obviously for your different states that you work in, it will recognize what states you do work in, especially on the the payroll side. But if you need to add, you can come in here and say, here's Illinois, state withholding, right? Click OK. And that's simply like I said, you can just add that in there. It does retrieve that tax account number. Do you have any recipients who elected to only receive 1099 forms electronically? Certainly can say no, but there's many clients, I should say more and more clients that are sending their 1099s electronically. So point is, I know I talked about that 1099 prep earlier, right, under miscellaneous. We would want to make sure, because let me see here, I forget if this one, forget if this report displays an email address. Yeah, I don't, I mean, this report, I know they have enhanced it. When I say I've enhanced it, bolded it, right, cleaned it up. I've seen old 1099 prep reports back in 2005 and a few years later, and the reason why, the client that I'm thinking of now had it pointing to a custom report. They made some change to it, and I looked at it and I'm like, wow, that's an ugly, that almost looks like a green bar. If you guys are familiar with a green bar paper, but I said that almost looks like a green bar report. Well, we had whenever you do updates with Sage, they'll always update certain reports, and my point is this is the most recent one. Unless I'm missing it, I don't see an email address listed. That's an address, recipient tax ID, right? Unless I'm purely missing it, but like even looking at this 1099 prep, especially with people emailing 1099s, this report could easily be updated to through an email address on here, right? So that as you're going through, if you're sending them electronically, but this one doesn't have it on there, right? Because the point is, do we have any recipients that want to receive them electronically? Right, we'd want to make sure that that was part of our 1099 prep rather than trying to populate email addresses right, at the time of generating 1099s. So that just dawned on me as a kind of a good point, another good prep to work on if you decide to send them electronically via email. Let me jump back to see if I can't see the questions while I'm over here on the demo server. I think I'm caught up there. Okay, so let me go back. Here, this just, no truncation, right? How you want to have them displayed. I do see clients probably more than likely, right, put in the masked social security number or masked, federal ID number, or any of the other ones if you want to leave zeros, right? So here, if I click next, so we'll wrap up the 1099 here shortly, and then jump over here to payroll. But as you see here, it turns blue up here on what step you're on. You can move this bar over, right? I mean, I can move it even further over, but notice even get into that part, you can scroll over here, right to left, just getting in there, getting used to the navigation. Now I was trying to look over to the right, but notice up here, the step that it's doing right now is, as you can see, highlighted blue. It doesn't have their last name, first name, middle name. That is, let's go back over here, AP, set up vendors. If you do the, Jeremy Warner, right, doing business as the DBA, if you populate this guy right here with the name, that is what's gonna follow suit over here. And then point is, it would uncheck the FEIN, and it would put the my social security number in here. So hopefully that helps, or if you have any questions on that, let me know. We'll click next. Again, right, checking the FEIN, making sure that we have an FEIN number. Click next. Confirming the recipient's names. Let's see, now that did go through. Here's city, state, zip, right? But notice here, if you had any, zip codes or state, I mean, point is they wouldn't be getting their checks if these weren't populated, but for whatever reason, if a zip code's wrong, Atrix will pick that up. Not in respect to the city, but just saying if it's not in the right format or extra digit or something here. But notice here's all of the box one. Verify these totals. Now, if these numbers are incorrect, number one, absolutely going back to that recalculate, getting your current year up to date. That would be my first thing to say. But then you did that, and then you look at this and you say, well, 11,041, no, we only paid this guy 8,000, that should be 1099 related. You may say, well, what kind of scenario does that come into play? Well, I'm going to jump back over here to AP. More and more I show this to people. They either haven't seen it or weren't told about it, but if you go enter an invoice for a vendor, we'll just say $1,000, right? Once you get down to the distribution, it is per distribution, but there is an exempt button down here. So if there's 1099 exempt, if there's a payment, obviously we're in the invoice screen where I'm cutting a check yet, but point is, once that distribution, notice here if I do 500, and to be honest, I don't have the exact real world example of when you would make one distribution. I wish I did. You'd think I would by bringing this up, but I'm not going to blow smoke or but notice here that $500 is 1099 exempt, where this distribution is not exempt. So if once we click accept, go cut the check, The 1099 total, if this was a new vendor, would show 9,500, right? But then not this, 500. So if you guys think of a scenario that you would want that, right? So point is, if you didn't know that, right, there's that point. Now, with that being said, in this scenario, let's say $500 was not, shouldn't have been, or I'm sorry, should have been 1099 exempt. I mean, you can absolutely change this number, right? And when I say that, I'm not saying get in a habit of it. I would say, hey, start, if there's certain invoices, right, or payments for that vendor that were 1099 exempt, get the data correct so that you're not doing the manual work over here. But point is, at this point, it's retrieving what we got from Atrix is getting what Sage gave us, and it does let you type that over for what that's worth. Hopefully that was worth something, right? All right, let's click next. And there's their state. Let's click next. And then here we get into the e-filing service, right? Next day postmark shows you $1.96 per. Where was that? There was there's a minimum. It's real small. A minimum of 20. So if you had two vendors, they're not going to charge you $4. They're going to charge you $24.95. I have plenty of clients. One in particular that I know has, for as far as 1099 purposes go, I think it's I think it was like close to 10, but it was less than 24. They're like, yeah, we're still going to do it. But point is here, let's click next. We have the complete 1099 filing service. When I say we don't get a dime of this, right? This goes through Atrix. You're paying Atrix, and it's sending it out. It's postmarked, right, with the return address, your return address, right? If it needs to get sent back, it gets sent back to what email? I'm sorry, not email. What address, mailing address you, the client, has on file, right? But as you can see here, even though we had 6, right, times is 1176, but the minimum is 24.95, which that shouldn't be much of a issue, right? Hopefully. All right. So then here, if you decided not to do that, you can go to other options. You can print the 1099 copies, right? But then now more and more, especially during COVID and even leading up to that, right? The more they're requiring the e-filing that I've seen, right? So point is, even if you go down here and uncheck this, this is what I want to see. Given the impact of COVID-19 to state agencies, several have asked that taxpayers, right, submit their returns electronically to eliminate likely delays. So as it says, they've asked that taxpayers submit. It's not requiring it necessarily, but they do ask for what that's worth. So up here, you don't get that message. So here, if I click next, PDF archive, I'm not aware of any clients that get the PDF archive because Atrix does save that information that we have. And I'll show you how to retrieve it. So if you do say no to the PDF, I'll show you here. Let's click next. If you click print here, I look at this as more of a cover page. Literally what you see is like a notepad. It's literally more of a, hey, what did we do last year, right? It shows you your selections. And here, let's, like I said, wrap this up, and then we'll go into W-2s. But here, federal 1099 copy. We don't have a printer here, and obviously we're on the remote meeting, so I'm not going to do a print. But notice it does say print copy because I already said that, hey, Atrix is going to file these for us. So you would absolutely want to click print copy, right? Would you want to print it now? I'm going to say no, but there are clients, right, that say, hey, yes, I'm going to have Atrix e-file it, but hey, I want that physical copy, right, sitting in my filing cabinet. So that's what typically do, just go through with clients, print copy, right? It'll show the, the draft. Here, if I click next, we won't get those messages if you actually print. And here, notice up top, here's the Illinois 1099. And again, if you have an Atrix, send it, right? You don't need that 4-part perforation paper, but if you are sending them, out and not e-filing them, or when I say e-filing them, having Atrix send those, because you can either have Atrix do one of two things: one, email it, or two, literally send that, postmarked in an envelope, right? And they'll do that for you. Otherwise, if you don't want them to do that, right, for that complete package, we're putting the 4-part, perforation, right, with the instructions on the back, then printing copy. I just click next. And here, the 1096 form. And then the last one here, when I say last one, as you see, report 5 of 5 to the payer. Copy for the payer. And then since I did that complete 1099 service, I'm going to click cancel here. But my point is here, I want to show you that it's going to ask for your, username and password that we talked early on, that you get that, enroll through the Atrix.com e-file. You log in, it'll show you pay $24.95 or whatever the amount is, and then you can save your credit card on file, or just type it in from year to year. So once you log in, then what it does is shows you what you're paying, credit card information, and then it gives you an AFID number, an Atrix filing ID number, which they'll email you, right, per your enrollment. And then once you receive that, then they'll give you updates via email. You can go in. I'm just going to say not enrolled. Why cancel it out of there? If you want to try again later, we'll say yes. And then real quick, let's go back in here. So here, earlier we did new report, but now if I do save report, what federal ID number, right? What form? So even though we didn't do that, PDF, archive, Atrix does, right? I'm just in a draft mode because I never finalized things, but you can come right back in here and click edit. And then essentially run through everything we just did now. So I'm gonna say no, so we can move on to the W-2s. But once you do file it, rather than it say edit, you can click on it, and it will actually allow you to reprint anyone in case someone lost it, dropped it in the garbage on accident, right? Flew out the window, what have you. All right, so let's close that, Let me go back to see if there's any questions. Said I'll do W-2s. I mean, I know we talked about closing the year. They're all independent of each other. Let's go back over here. Cash management. AP has the 2 close year. AR has a close year. It doesn't have a month. It doesn't have a close month or close period. So these two, AP has 2 close years. AR has 1 close year. Billing looks at contracts, so that doesn't have anything. Cash management excuse me, has a task close year. And as you can see here, it's just and I know a lot of people confuses the bad term, but I'll say it gets a little misinterpreted, because once you see close year, when you hear close from a prior accounting system, what have you, you're thinking, hey, if I close that, I can't go back to the prior year. You absolutely can. These close year processes and close period, close month, really what that's doing, I've always said it should just say roll, roll forward, right? Because what it's doing is it's moving those buckets around from this year to last year, right? Previous activity, what have you, whatever the last month, this month, right? So it's not truly like closing it down where you can't get back, in there. It's not going to say, hey, you can't make that entry because you close the year. That's not the case, for what that's worth. Hopefully, something. Contracts close month, equipment costs close month, general ledger close period, right, and close year. Like we talked about earlier, if you make prior year adjustments, make sure you can reclose that fiscal year as many times as you have prior year adjustments. So don't think it's a one-time thing. Always remember to reclose that as many times as need be. Job cost is close month. There is no close year. Payroll close month and close year. And I think that's it there. All right, so let's get over here to payroll. Was it Dorothy, I think, that said, going over here to the questions. What reports do you recommend running before closing the year in payroll? Good question. I know this is a popular one. Worked with plenty of clients on. Now, there was a client that was like, hey, I need to run these reports before, right, closing the year. This subject to employee and the prior per subject to employee, right? So right now, let me go look at in payroll settings, right? This is just here, May of 22, right? So if I come here and go reports, tax prep, subject to employee, and do print preview, right? These numbers right here, the 10,487,64. If I come over here and do this guy, prior per, right, subject to employee. This, as it talks about prior, it's literally just pulling in the prior year. So now, point is, this report, right, if you wanted to have your current year and prior year together, right, we don't want to close the year and get into 2023 without running this report, because, right, now if we get into 23, your subject to employee report becomes 2023 report, which obviously wouldn't have any data until that first payroll, and the prior per becomes your 2022 report. But if you said, oh wait, I want a 2021 report, right? Well, if you jump into 23, this prior per is, one year. So, these reports are based off the master file, right? As far as, like I said, rolling forward, moving those amounts forward. I know I've worked on one of these reports where we've created off the transaction record. So my point is, literally type, when you run this report, rather than just click print preview, we're actually doing accounting date from January 1, to 12/31/22, or whatever year you want it, right? So any new reports, I'm always building it off the transaction record so that we don't have to like say, oh, I forgot to print this report before, closing the year, right? Try to take some stress off from that side of things. As far as any other good reports, I mean, as far as when I say I'm not an accountant, I mean, I've been doing this 17 years, so I always, anything accounting related, right? That, that deals with, your accountant and you're obviously in-house, but definitely know plenty when it comes to reconciliations and what have you. My point is, your payroll subledger, right, with your liability accounts, there are these reconciliation reports, fringes by credit account, especially when you start getting into, unions, right, and making sure that your payroll is matching up with your liabilities, right, on the union side and in the GL side of things, because that, I mean, I don't want to go down a foxhole or into the weeds too much, but point is, when you set up fringes, right, you set up a liability account. If I come over here and go down to unions, locals, and not everyone on this call may be union related, so I won't go too far down this, but I'm just going to point out that when you set up unions, if I scroll over, I'm not sure if anyone knew this or if it's worthwhile, but if I scroll over, you can set up these different deducts and fringes, right, per that specific union, local, and class, and you can have dedicated, if you will, liability accounts per that union, local, and classes. That's when you can start getting into the suffixes, if you have suffixes, in addition to your base account. The point is, you can, that's kind of a hidden field over there. Doesn't really stand out to you, but the point is, if you go down that route, then you can run these reports that could, help tie to your general ledger. Let's see, I heard a ding. I don't know if that's a question. Let's see. Nope. All right, so let me go back here. As far as, let's go and talk, W-2s, even though Atrix, right, which we've been talking about, your Atrix is this federal e-filing, and reporting. Or actually, let me take one quick step back. I know we talked taxes earlier, right? Download and update. There is, I just found this, a payroll tax release notes. That's where I took that one screenshot from, but just worked with a Colorado client the other day about Colorado family leave. I think, yeah, here it is. Scroll down here, it does go state, when I say state by state, the states that had changes. So it does, this Colorado paid family leave, right, effective January 1, 23, right, and the employee contribution. So it did bring down certain state taxes, right? Payroll tax update 23.1, which is the, if you download now, it does give these updates. This is where we looked at the federal withholding, January 1, right? We saw that. And then here's the Social Security. I think the earnings just increased, unless that changed as well. All right, so let me jump back over here. As far as, going into Atrix for W-2s, I'm trying to think if there's any other reports that we could run, but here, if I go into tools, modify forms, check forms, oops, sorry, W-2 forms here. I have looked at clients and saw their list here, and they've had a laundry list of different forms. I mean, what I recommend is just having one W-2 form, whether it's called default or called W-2 or whatever it may be. My point is, here we put a penny, because even though we're going to be doing the W-2s through Atrix, we still need to make sure that we tell Atrix what data to pull in here. Because if we didn't come in here and tell it to pull this box 12 deduct 401k, that data would not pull into Atrix. And then I've had clients say, oh, I run a report for the deducts and then I type it all the way down Atrix. I'm like, oh, no, we don't want to have to do that, right? We want to come over here to modify forms and tell Atrix what data you want to pull in here. Just worked with the client the other day. They started using the 401, offering the 401k Roth, right? They always had the 401k, but point is, hey, before doing the W-2s, I mean, they're going to start processing in 23, so it wouldn't be until next year at this time. But would definitely want to make sure that we brought in our respective new deducts, any insurance, and as you can see here, once you click here, you can click on the respective fringe and then have Sage hand over that data over to Atrix. So this is definitely first step is looking at your format. We'll just click cancel. All right, so then back down here, we already talked about this on the AP side, but look and see where you're at, for what period, right? What year? If you do get into 23, right? Because as we all know, or should know, you can't post payroll without being in the current period. So you can absolutely get into 2023. Well, obviously, right now it's 12/29. But if you need to get into 12/23 to post that first payroll, right? But then do W-2s, a couple weeks from now, or a day or two later after your first payroll. If we just come over here to federal e-file and reporting, notice here 2022, right? W-2, W-3. You can print W-2s for the current year and the prior year. So point is, don't hesitate to close 22 and get into 23 in any worry for your not being able to run W-2s, because we can absolutely run it for the prior year, which is typical that I see clients doing. As far as archiving, I'm going to click cancel real quick and jump right back in here. I'll tell a quick horror story. The client was really looking forward to archiving data to speed things along, right? Which I've done many projects. Then this horror story was me hearing it through a grapevine through another consultant. But point is, very good to archive data, especially to speed up reports, speed up efficiencies, right? Not seeing so much stuff in your lists or in your reports. But point is, moving current to history, what we don't want to do is we do not want to move any employees' checks from current to history. And you may say, well, this guy, he was terminated or what have you, halfway through the year. Well, we obviously still need to get him a W-2, as everyone knows, right? But we don't want to start moving his checks to history until, right, we've processed W-2s and we know that the W-2 process is all said and done. And the reason why I say that is because the federal e-file reporting W-2s does not look at the history file for Sage payroll. So did want to point that out and stress that out. So here W-22 W-2 the year, we'll click next. Here it pulls all the employees, right, with at least a penny based on what we put in the the tools modify forms. So it retrieved all of them. So now we just click next, click generate, and this generate is essentially Atrix saying, hey, Sage, give me the data you told me to generate. Oh, maybe I have another question here. I'm reading. I think you may be able to see the question I'm reading. I guess obviously you're seeing my screen, but I don't know if that panel hides. But I'm reading your question, Barbara. Need to update. You said you need to update to 22 version before 1099s and W2s. It's a long process to update. May not be able to get this done by out of source IT. How do I do this? How do I do this? I don't have to run W2s. In the chat or in that question, what version are you currently on, Barbara? Depending on when you jumped on the meeting, I think it was 20.5. Thank you. Let me find out where I had that. So what I believe I said, right? Not saying he said, she said, right? Just pointing out what I was saying is I definitely recommend getting on the latest and greatest, right? If you will, the 22.2. But I did, and every year consultants get the same question. Hey, do I need to be on the latest release of Sage, right? To process. If you called Sage, essentially they're gonna pretty much say yes. I mean, year in, year out, right? Hey, get the year-end update. Point is, I did find this in the under the Sage resources. It says the changes in 2023 tax updates are compatible with Sage 20.5 or later. So point is, in 17 years, I'm not kidding you, I think that may be the first time that I've seen where Sage didn't say, hey, you have to be on the latest, right, for payroll and 1099. But they say right here, the tax updates, right, will be compatible. Now, again, maybe it's just more out of not habit, but just experience, right? We always recommend getting on the latest one, but the update one for 22.5, there is another place I saw where there was no government mandated changes, right? So point is, just based on this alone, you're good for the for the year end and processing W2s. Obviously you have to update the forms through Atrix, and I'll send this along, but this is directly from Sage, so I think that should answer your question. But if I imply that you have to be on 22, I apologize, but I thought I said early on I recommend it, but based on this, right, you just need to be on 20.5. All right, so here, W2s, right, we have the test, and feel free to ask any other questions here. I know we only have like 15 minutes, and if anyone dropped off because they don't have, payroll or W2, totally fine. But here we have, no thanks. Let's start processing W2s. We have our FEIN number. And this earlier, what I was talking about on the AP, don't see this on the AP side, but absolutely on the payroll side. Not all the time, but definitely, clients do have their office salary or management salary and, those employees in a separate data folder. So point is, those you want to do, yes, I use multiple payroll data folders for this EIN, because what that does is once you click yes and we click next, excuse me, what that does is it then you click save. And what you would do here, you could use the date timestamp, and you would say office salary data folder, right? And then what you would do is you would go in and do another one for your field, right? Just like we did last year, right? So point is, once you come back in here, you click field and the salary, and you would merge them together. I mean, it's leaving your data, in those respective folders, right? But it's merging them into a spreadsheet together, so you can, generate one W2. So point is, if I click merge, it would bring both of those sets of employees into one grid. So just pointing that out. If you guys need help with that, or if you guys need to walk through that, we can absolutely do that with myself or another consultant and step you through that. But I want to explain what that does. Now, this is the same data folder, right, across 2 different years, right? So let's close that. Let's jump back in, and let's just go through the standard route. I know I keep opening and closing things on you, but I want to make one more quick point. But we'll say back in the day, right, 2005, 2006, before Atrix came around, what clients would have to do is go into their office data folder, and they would have to move their employees from one into the main one, and then generate the W2s. But since Atrix came around, that's a thing of a way past, right? Since Atrix came around, now we can merge data files together. So at least I want to point on that, whether or not that applies to anyone. But if it applies to one, I'm glad I pointed that out, and knowing that you can do that. So here we'll do W2. Click next, click generate. Almost. So yeah, the more employees you have, I mean, the sample database has quite a few. We'll click, let's start. That process, depending on your number of employees, I mean, that could, I've seen it take upwards to, 5 minutes to grab all of it, because it's going through that current file that you have to generate those totals. So that's another reason why I definitely recommend archiving. Like I said earlier, we don't want to archive current to history for employees for that given year, because again, Atrix doesn't look at the history file. So I do want to stress that. It sounds like I'm being contradictory, but I'm not. Archiving is key and very important, but just don't archive a current, or I'm sorry, a terminated employee that worked in that year, because they won't show up. And there is no move from history back to current, unfortunately, in payroll. So here, use a single payroll data for this EIN. Here's all this information again, and notice here, just like we click next, filing for the company. Again, like I said earlier, Atrix is very interactive, right? So here, if I come over to the state unemployment number, that, yeah, that's right. I've done that before, and even I keep doing it. It says the example was copied. Your account number should be different. It says, come on, you got to be a little bit more creative than that. Let's see that creativity, right? All right, so here, this guy, I think this is the, yeah, put a 1 at the end here. So here we have our withholding number, our unemployment. If you have any local taxes, you'll see those in here. And like I said, if you worked in any other states, you're going to start seeing those states populate, and make sure that you have your tax ID numbers for those. Even though I've seen Oregon, I'm not sure of this exact message. I mean, this is just from the sample data. Let's see here. It's not letting me. Avoid agency. This may be new because I don't recall getting this last year. And you know, even though I teach a year-end class, I'm not going to sit here and say I know all of Oregon's state taxes, but or local taxes. But it says avoid agency rejections by adding the local tax item now. The Oregon Department of Revenue requires reporting of statewide transit tax withheld in box 14 of the Form W-2. So this was a curveball to me, but I'm going to use this curveball and say this right here, right? This is Atrix. This is all Atrix, right? Atrix is saying, hey, we've seen rejections in the past. Hey, we're gonna account for this and make sure that we cover the the Oregon people, that they don't get rejection. So like I said, which I've been stressing, right? Very interactive. Let me try to do this. Let me see if I can't remove those. Is it really not gonna let me get past this? ORSTT. Let's see, hopefully I can get past that here. So last, shoot. All right. I don't think this is going to do the trick here. Let me see. Does it put an ID? I see some news. Does closing the year for each module archive it also? No. Good question. I forget what product does do that as far as archiving, but no. Very good question. It does not archive automatically. So, and actually, I'm going to go to. I see Cheryl. Thank you. It says put an ID number in the local tax, in the one that's down there. Let me get rid of this guy. So it was that. Let's see. Let's do it here. It did let me edit it. Shoot, sorry. run into something like this right at the end. I'm trying to think if I can, I can't remove those because it has Oregon. I will come back in there. I'll give that one more try. Thanks, Cheryl, for that, unless I didn't put the tax ID number right, but it didn't say that. I don't know why that wouldn't be the, but as far as closing the years, right? The closing years and closing months literally moves balances around from this month to last month, but good question. It does not move transactions from like current to history. So like here, if we did check information, check time, right? We have new current history. Nothing goes in this history file for payroll or job costs or, well, I actually will speak to GL, or AP or AR unless you incorporate an annual archiving process. So here, the archiving is move checks current to history, right? Or if you want to move terminated employees to a separate data folder, then we're moving those transactions from history to history as well as the employees, so you don't have to see those employee in the list. But no, closing the year does not move anything to archive. The only thing that would go into the history file is in general ledger. So there's a caveat, if you will. General ledger, when you close the year, the closing entry goes and gets hit to the GL history file. So I'll show you that real quick. So here, these guys right here. So not the beginning balance, those are done by whoever in the sample data, but these closing entries, that here's that $30, right? Earlier, if you were on the call or on call the whole time, earlier I did the closed fiscal year. So this did hit the history file. So that's really the only place where it would hit the history file when you close a year, just from a GL perspective. So it hits retained earnings as you see here, and then notice it hit that 4,002. So it makes that balance entry, I guess is my point. So answer that. As far as that W-2, I apologize. Right at the tail end. I mean, it's not like I have to jump off here, but I don't want to. We have a few more minutes here, but point is, I was not expecting that because I did not get that last year. That's new, which frustrating for a class right at the tail end, but also from a optimistic point of view, right? The good thing is Atrix is not letting you just click through things, right? Like I am for this, Oregon setup. Let me go back to while that's running. Let me see if there's any other questions here. But I'll try that again, Cheryl. Thanks for, like you said, put an ID number in the local tax. And actually, I was gonna say, hey, Oregon State withholding. Just try to sneak past and see what we have. Okay, so we did populate those earlier, right? We know we have to get those in, but now let's me click edit. Yeah, and to be honest, I'd have to look look into that. When I say would have to, if anyone's in Oregon, right, absolutely can find that out for you, right, to make sure we would get past that. But I'll be honest, that's news to me. But here, talking about box 14 of Form W-2, we talked about earlier, right, tools, modify forms, W-2 forms, right, making sure that, hey, that just told us, hey, got to go put that in there. But I don't think that's what's stopping that. This is talking about this ORSTTT, right? A statewide transit local tax item. But when I try to come down here to add a local tax, right? Obviously we can come do this, right? For Oregon. No group, the tax name. I don't see that ORS of statewide transit tax. That may be it right there. Let's see, do we get it? There we are. Yeah, and the W1. So we found that statewide transit tax, and I know you guys are on mute, so maybe someone already knew, hey, that was in the drop-down list, but found it, right? That was Oregon specific. But point is, it's 11:01. I'm just gonna scroll through these last screens just so you guys can see. I don't think there's any other open-ended, or not open-ended, but any other questions. I'll get all the different forms. If you need to run, I'm gonna stay on probably another few more minutes, but if you've seen enough, appreciate everyone staying on. But like I said, if anyone wants to stay on here just these last few minutes, or if I have any other questions, I'll stay on the next few minutes. But I appreciate everyone joining this year-end class. Okay, so here's, do any employees members of the clergy? No. We'll click next. Any employees exempt? Right, we're going to say no. We want to say the payer is the 941. If you want a certain control number to start with, otherwise, here in the next screen, you'll see we can truncate, right, social security numbers to mask them. So I just want to see this all the way through in case anyone hasn't got to these screens before. But same thing with, like we looked at in the 1099s, hey, verify employee information, right? So it's going to go all the way down from top down. All the names look good. Here, as far as the retirement plan, right, third party sick, okay, verify these. Again, if there's any ones that you have to check, you can check them from within here. But again, I would recommend going to those employee setups so you don't have to do that year by year. So let's click next. And this is early on when I told that story. When I click next, the Social Security wages, right? If I click next, everything looked good, but literally, like I said, at this point, that's when whatever employee turned up red and said, hey, you can't be within a outside of $1, right, for withholding. We closed out of it, cut that guy the $8 check, came back in, and boom, it passed this test. So here's Oregon wages and Oregon tax. Now here's our Oregon message again. And I don't know if I'm going to try to troubleshoot an Oregon tax, especially if anyone is in Oregon, right? Definitely let me know. I'm going to go back and correct. But as you can see here, it's being really picky about this Oregon taxes here. Let me put this out there. Let's see how many people are still on. Does anyone want to see through the end? Let me see the attendees. 36. Still on here. Let me see that through here. What the heck? See what that does. So here, yeah, this is new to me, but here, as you can see, it's bringing up the detail of each. Rather than watch me click that many times, I'm gonna do this if you want to stay on it, but now I want to see this through, even though let's run through this. Let's do next. Let's say select none. I'm just going to select one employee, or actually here's a Washington employee. All right, let's get past the Oregon. Generate. Now, hopefully just a few more minutes and then I'll close out, but if you do have to run, totally get that. So no, use a single payroll. Next. Let's update these, right? Okay. Put the one there. Here's that message that we got before. Set up Oregon. Here's the statewide transit tax. Next time I talk to Dennis Earnshaw, the developer of my assistant, he lives out in Oregon. I'm going to ask him about that. Not that he's a Sage 300, but find out about that transit tax. That must be new this year. So if I click next, 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 let's see here. Go back and correct. Now, let's see if let's get past it here. So now, so I just did one employee, so you didn't see me click through, 30 employees and try to put those amounts in there for the transit tax that it looks like that they have to either claim or what have you. So here, same thing applies, but have Atrix send them and mail the employee copies, right? $1.96 a piece. Here, if you wanted to e-file, right, or email, I should say, the employee copies, it's $1.15 as opposed to $1.96. So you'd have to trap their employee email addresses, right, for Atrix to know about those. Here, we won't do the PDF archive. Like I said earlier, right, select all for the respective state, but then here you print this if you want your file cabinet copy. Look at that as more like a cover page, like I said. Now here it's only going to be loading the one employee, but as you can see up here, report 1 of 5. Here's your employer W-2. Employer W-2, right, just for the one employee. But since it's employer, it'll be four employees, 4 different employees, right? We just have the one there. You'd print the final. But I don't have the printer, so I'm just going to click next, just like I did for the 1099s. And at this point, just like the modified forms, W-2 forms, it would pull in on that previous screen, it would pull in the respective data like we would have saw on the grid for box 14 or box 12. But here's our federal W-2. So two, I think, yeah, the two up there. I'll also generate the federal W-3 and file it with Atrix. And like I said, it'll give you an AFID number, and you can log into Atrix and you can check the status of it, whether it's processing, submitted, processing, accepted, what have you. So that's a good way to log back in and find the, the status of it. But here, let's click next for the W-3. Here up top, here's our Oregon W-2. And then for Oregon, which I am familiar with this just based on doing year end, but wasn't familiar with that transit tax, here's the Oregon WR report, but it would pull up any respective state that you're working in. Atrix will know about that. Here, I'm just going to click through these numbers, showing you again, Atrix being very, very interactive, saying, hey, if we're gonna file this with Oregon, it requires this information. So again, we're not playing the guessing game of what we need to fill out. Click next and saying, hey, I agree with everything that we have up top here. So for like the Wisconsin 7 report, or depending on what state, if you have any state withholding reports, it'll do this at that last step. And then just like the 1099, ask you for your username and password, you log in, put the credit card information in, pay the amount, and Atrix will send you that AFID number that I mentioned earlier a few times. So I'm gonna just look at the questions one more last time. If there's nothing there, again, I really appreciate everyone joining in. I will send the different articles, right, that we have here for this. And if there's any other questions, I'll definitely have Jen give you my email address to ask any questions that you have, and hopefully that helped along the way. So everyone have a great day and a happy new year, but I'll be here if you need anything. Thank you so much.